Okay, I would like to go ahead and call the Fishers Advisory Committee on Disability meeting to order, the April 15th meeting. Could we please get a roll call?
Yes. Cecilia.
Here?
Kelly.
Here.
Wilbur.
Here.
Katie. Here. Darcy. Here. Chrissy's not with us. Michelle. Here. Jason's not with us. And Ross.
Here.
Thank you. We do have quorum.
Okay, perfect. We have also the previous meeting minutes for December 10th, 2024. Is there a motion to approve the December 10th meeting minutes? A motion by Wilbur. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Darcy. All those in favor say aye. 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 Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. And hi, Chrissy. No worries. Chrissy's here. Okay, thank you. Wonderful. Okay. We're going to move on to committee update. We had an amazing March Disability Awareness Month. The month was tailored to the deaf and hard of hearing community. We were really excited to learn more about that group of residents in our community. The theme for this past March was connected through language, and we learned a lot that there's definitely pride in the language that's spoken through ASL, and that we're really wanting to focus more on what we can do to include people who are deaf and hard of hearing in our community. We had 3 speakers come and do the kickoff. We had Jason Wagner, Arena Burke, and Greg Gannett, and they were amazing. Do we have the slides, Ross, at all for the winners of the awards or anything like that? Do we have? I didn't know if we had slides to show.
They are not prepared tonight, but they are all still on the city website, along with their all of the video clips that were included are all posted on the city website.
Okay. So we had a breakfast with the One Zone. We had a representative from Daymar, the president and director of Daymar. We had an amazing art exhibit in collaboration with the Fishers Arts Council, and we were very, very excited to collaborate with them. We appreciate everything that they did. We partnered again with the Parks and Recreation with a story walk of a book called My Brain is Magic, and that was something that folks could do at Holland Park. Again, we had an amazing resource fair. We'll hear more about that. And then we partnered with the Hamilton East Public Library with a number of different workshops. One that was exceptionally amazing and is the American Sign Language Beginners class. And we're really excited, and we hope to kind of have more of those opportunities in the future for beginning sign language. We do have some reports. One of the impactful events that we have is My Point of View Day, where we invite disability stakeholders, elected officials, the department heads. The mayor leads a breakfast where there's roundtable discussions, and the disability community can share their life experience with elected officials, community leaders, and through those discussions, it helps us to begin to look at initiatives in the future and ways in which we can collaborate with the general community. So wanted to kind of talk to Chrissy. How was the resource fair? Wanted to just,
It was good. It was held in Carmel, and she did a great job hosting it. There were 70 vendors there, and I would say approximately 100 different families. So I still don't have the ratios of how many Carmel to Fishers families there were, but I saw quite a few of ours there, which is always encouraging since it wasn't housed in a Fisher school. So
that's awesome. And my understanding that it's gonna rotate also from Noblesville too, right? Is Noblesville in the mix now? Noblesville, Carmel,
there's some
Fishers?
conversations going on.
That possibly it'll rotate year to year,
Yes.
okay. I was not able to make the One Zone breakfast, but was there, Kelly, would you want to share a little bit more about that, like how that went?
Yeah, Dr. Jim Dalton was here to talk about, a little bit about Daymar and kind of how they've evolved and how that relates to the big picture, and talked about employment. So that was great, and I mean, it was a nice breakfast. It was well attended. I don't know how many people were here, but it was a pretty full room. It was great.
Wonderful,
A lot of conversations after.
wonderful. And one of the takeaways of this month was also learning that the deaf and hard of hearing community, they don't see themselves as having a disability, yet they are part of a cohort that's in a group of individuals that are protected under the ADA. But they are wanting to continue to be a part of our committee, and we do have a new member that will be joining us. We'll talk about the new member here later in the agenda, that is a representative of our community that represents the deaf and hard of hearing community, that will be a part of our advisory committee on disability that just got appointed by the mayor to fill Shelby Slowick's place. And so he's very excited, and he'll have a group of individuals that will kind of form a subcommittee that will help him in helping us to learn more about what initiatives and what are some of the important issues related to living in a community here like Fishers, and how we can support the deaf and hard of hearing community. So we're really excited. Wanted to kind of do a recap of the My Point of View Day and kind of go through each topic. So we had a number of different topics, and wanted to kind of maybe start with you, Katie, to share a little bit about the takeaways from the accessibility group that you helped to lead. If you could maybe share with us a little bit of like the takeaways of what was talked about in your committee as it relates to physical disabilities and accessibility, and some of the things that you think were important out of those conversations.
So one of the things we talked about, we had a few people from the deaf community at our table, and it was really enlightening for me to learn how many deaf people are in Hamilton County. Like, I think someone said like 50,000 people.
Wow.
Like it's like a huge number. And the two women at my table who are deaf said that, like, I mean, the deaf community is a tight-knit community, and that so many deaf people being here is why others are moving to Hamilton County, because of the support systems that are here, because of the communities that are here. So that was really awesome to learn. Something that they raised that was a takeaway for our table was the accessibility of the BMVs in Hamilton County, that when they go, they can't hear their number being called, and it just seemed like a simple screen. I imagine some BMVs have got to have them somewhere, a screen when your number's called. So I was kind of looking into that, and that'll be something that I'll look into more and discuss with our accessibility subcommittee. And then there's just so many little issues, and I mean, they're not little to people, they're a big issue in people's lives, but we talked about maybe on the Fishers website having some sort of box where people can voice accessibility issues within the city. If a cross button or a button to cross the street isn't accessible, letting the city know. So we talked about that as a way to kind of like let people voice concerns so we can see where some accessibility issues are outside of our own lives. So yeah, and I really appreciate the feedback that I gave at this time last year was I didn't feel like there was a table where people with, accessibility was being addressed specifically for people with disabilities. And I just felt like my point of view day from my perspective was so much more impactful, and like we really got down to the point. And I feel like I just really appreciate you guys taking that feedback and running with it. So.
Wonderful, thank you. Yes, so I know at my table, Senator Walker was there, and he took some notes about that, and he was gonna look into it in terms of the BMV to see and to kind of double check and to find out, what could be done there and investigate that. And then we'll talk about it some more in terms of priorities, but we were wondering, Ross, if maybe we could take a look at that. I think the city of Carmel has on their mobile app and on their website, they have an ADA concerns button or a page where people could type in whatever, put in pictures or type in something. I need to look into it, but I didn't know if you might be able to look into it.
Yeah, anything for this entire committee, Ashley Elrod, she's our Community and Public Relations Director. She's open to making any modifications that this committee sees fit in regards to the accessibility of the website. So yeah, please, everything that Katie sent over earlier today was forwarded over to Ashley. They need around 30 days to make those improvements, but we're free and open to do that. So
Okay.
if we have examples like Carmel or something, that would be helpful.
Wonderful, okay, great. Arts and culture, so I wind up at a different table, but Samantha was our scribe. Samantha, would you be able to kind of maybe share a little bit, if you could remember some of the highlights of your committee there, of the committee you're on, or the topic roundtable you were on?
It was for the arts, but I was supposed to scribe, and I was not there until after the fact that they did it.
Okay, no worries, I have notes here, but, so basically, I've got your note, I've got the notes here. So basically, kind of what came out of there is more events for adults with, who have disabilities, different ages, different learning levels, a buddy program for adults with more group activities, educational opportunities for life skills, craft classes of all levels, performing arts classes, barrier-free theater opportunities, reducing financial barriers, working with the community to help fill the gap of limited programming availability for adults with different abilities, a caregiver and adult class, like a joint one-price class, art tent to display art at events at a discount rate.
So one of the next steps, Councilor Coble, on this one specifically, Michelle with the Fishers Arts Center, which we all know is ran by the Indianapolis Arts Center, was unable to be there that day. So a lot of these things we've passed on to the Arts Center because we think they can, jump head in to tackle some of these. So that's one of the next steps for this particular group.
Okay, great.
Utilizing them.
Awesome. And I know that Thrive Social Club is really excited. they connected with the Art Center, and they're doing a special, like, paint by numbers class, or some kind of craft, or some kind of, an art thing that they're doing, and they're really excited to participate, so I saw that. We also had a deaf and hard of hearing table, and, we had, let's see. And one of the takeaways, honestly, was there's a lack of ASL interpreters in our community. So we had some challenges at the My Point of View Day. We made requests from various agencies and things, and so we were having trouble getting enough, and we found out that there's a lack of, I guess, classes in the community. So, again, working with Jason Wagner and the deaf and hard of hearing community, we're hoping that we can get some ideas of how to overcome those challenges. Software and technology, they talked about that. The challenge has also been like how to talk with first responders in a situation of an emergency situation like police and fire. So we're going to explore some ideas from other communities and see if we can come up with some more opportunities definitely for classes, a basic sign. Like they were encouraging that police and fire and people that work in the public sphere, maybe just learn some basic sign language, so basic signs.
On that note, Cecilia, I think some conversations that have occurred and other people I've talked to when we run up and got this is using visuals, such as, pictures. Because we as a district have 104 languages spoken in our district. So this is a problem for our deaf and hard of hearing, which we want to focus on, but it's also a problem for some of our families that are moving from other countries that are not fluent in our language. So if we had something visual that was the pictures indicating stuff, what was wrong or what the concerns are, or whatever those basic signs would be, and I'm not opposed to signs at all, but I'm also thinking we are a very blended community now. So just thinking beyond what we're talking about right now, it might be something to consider.
So are they using that at the schools?
We use pictures at the school all the time for various things, but for our dual language learners, we're using, sometimes it starts as pictures when they're in that very beginning level, just kind of depends on where they are. But pictures tend to be more universal for certain things. So just something to think about.
Right. And also resources for the deaf and hard of hearing community too. We need to add that to our website and to the Fishers landing page for our committee and everything. So that was some things. So we'll hear more about that, but that was some of the highlights that we takeaways. Education. That was led by Leslie Brown, and, kind of the goal is to try to expand on the Best Buddies program, to add it to they're going to add it to the elementary schools, and how can we, move into the aging population and assisted living as well to kind of, bring the community together, closed captioning as well, like how can we promote that in the community. So there was quite a few things. Again, interpreters was also another thing, and a lot of preparation for post leaving the high school system, what opportunities and how to navigate after a person ages out of the school system and they have disabilities. So that was also another thing.
It probably wasn't discussed at the table, but one of the powerful things that's happening in the Fishers area is Youth Mentoring Initiative, YMI, has started including grade school, I think 4th grade, and up to have adult mentors, which I think is a very positive thing for education as well.
That's good. Christy, do you want to talk about your employment discussion? There are some of the highlights there.
So I think we kind of focused a lot about the continuum of they have the support in high school, then they go to adult day services or adult support services, and they're very limited on how long that support can be. And so how can we streamline that more, whether it's, basic soft skills and other training for staff? Is it, making, having other people be aware when there's situations occurring and how to handle them, which we've been called in on before with various employers. Obviously, some of the scheduling issues that come about, and transportation, of course, is always an issue. Because mom and dad sometimes have to have the jobs, and, it's Hamilton County Express is not always readily available. So that was something that came up
I
as
think
well.
less focus this time on how are we getting jobs versus what are those things that happen once you get to that job piece, and performance issues and attendance, and what happens when a manager changes, those type of things. So what are some things we can help bridge that gap on, and what are those resources?
And, there was one of just that continuity of a job. You get a new manager, and that manager might not be as tolerant as something what can be done. And I think people forget they can always call that job coach back in. They can always reopen a VR case. They can always use some of their waiver dollars just for that. Because a lot of times it's just a little bit of a tweaking. We also talked about that, although they do have a disability and they are protected, they also just, to a capacity need to be held accountable like other employees would. So we have the resources that can help support them, and sometimes it's just not the right job for them. And having those conversations with either families or employers, not easy for anybody to do, but we certainly, it's not a pity case, it's not a charity case. We have people that are capable of doing excellent work, and we want to make sure we're just always making those good fits.
Okay, great. Wilbur, you want to talk a little bit about housing, what was discussed at your table related to housing?
Sure. It was pretty interesting at our table, only because we had a parent and her high school age son with her, and or son or daughter, I don't remember, but had her kid with her, and she was talking about aging out of high school, and that there's not really housing opportunities in Fishers, but they're seeing them in other communities, and part of that we talked about actually would bring us toward being more of an advocate for the state of Indiana to try to get the settings rule kind of redefined, just because the settings rule won't allow us to create a community of IDD residents, yet we can have a 55-plus community. We can have other communities that are basically set aside for a group of people, but the settings rule kind of makes it difficult for us to have a community that we can include in the Fishers area for special needs. Part of our discussion talked about both Carmel and Zionsville, and Lawrence in Indianapolis, who've created those areas, and we didn't know exactly how they did it, but we're thinking it would just be powerful if we had opportunities like that that we could make available in Fishers.
So it's, let me give a little context.
Please.
From the state perspective. So it's not disallowed by the settings rule to do that.
Okay.
There are certain. It's on. I thought somebody was snapping at me. Oh. I was like, what? So there are certain conditions in the settings rule, including things to consider, like who owns the home? Is there a lease like you or I would have, right? Is there choice? The great thing about 55 and older communities is when you turn 55, if that's where you want to live, that's a choice. So it has to be a choice, and it can't be, well, we only have these providers. So in Carmel and Lawrence, specifically, you're talking about Village of Marichi's, two developments. When the
Carmel North.
yeah, North End, right. When they came from CMS, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid and Medicare Services, they visited Villages in Marici to assure that it met compliance of the settings rule and how Indiana meets that settings rule. And it did. We probably learned from that, and I could probably bring specific feedback back to Fishers, to this group, to talk more about that. What you can't do is say, okay, here's this community and only XYZ provider provides services there. And you can't leave, right? And you have to live here if you're with this provider. But if there's a choice, we can certainly look at that. But it also has to significantly promote independence and learning skills that will foster more independence in everybody's life. So it's possible. It's not completely off the table, but there are just some additional hoops to have to jump through.
And somebody has to get behind it to finance it and put it together.
Right, so
and-
they're both of
And that
those-
would not be a city function, that would be a,
Well, it would have to be city, I believe both of those were done through grants from the Indiana Economic Development Corporation, IEDC.
Yeah.
So was North End. And so, much like we have at South Point, you have to have a developer, the tax credits, a banking partner, to come together, and community partners. So it's certainly possible. It's just not, they frown upon a company saying, oh, well, we're going to develop this neighborhood, and anybody that wants to be with us, they have to go here. People get to have rights as a tenant. They have to have legal leases, just like anyone else would have, that holds entities accountable and holds them accountable as tenants in a place that they lease. So it's certainly possible. It's just not, it's a little bit more difficult. It's not as easy as it seems, but it is possible.
it's good to know.
It's really, what they really would love is if we found a way to thoughtfully and purposely integrate people with disabilities, intellectual disabilities in this case, and people without disabilities into the same community.
Of
Right?
course, we have that at South Point.
South Point is a big gold star for the city of Fishers that we did that. It's just that we need like 40 South Points.
Yeah, I'll add as the last thing on this item, so Councilor Coble can move on to the next one, is that because of My Point of View Day, we're meeting again with Mike and Rhonda with Real America to see what their next project is in our community, so.
I think that we should do a tiny home community with a common building, and it would have set aside lots for people with disabilities and anybody else as well. Or workforce communities are great too, where you have people who are willing to support their neighbors and live next door to folks and that creates employment opportunities for people who don't have disabilities. And it kind of gets rid of some of the transportation challenge when you're working next door to where you live.
Well, more to come for sure, but on a great,
Just as a sidebar, I did have dinner last night with Danielle, the new-ish executive director, president, whatever her title is, of, it's president, I think. It is of Hamilton County Community Foundation. And I think what any state, any community, anywhere, when you talk about intellectual disabilities, the issues are transportation, employment, and housing. But what we have to keep in mind, that's also the same three issues for every population that has challenges. It is the three issues for everyone, for the most part, who has trouble accessing things in their community. So it's an ongoing discussion for sure. We're really lucky. The team at IEDC is really, really forward-thinking in how to integrate our folks into housing through grants. So we're lucky in that respect. It's just a slow process.
thanks.
I don't know if it was really part of housing, but two other things that showed up at our table were both advocacy needs, that the city of Fishers could be advocates. One of them was just suggesting building codes for buildings that were going up, but the other was that we were told, and I know how difficult this is, that the CIH and the community integration waivers were a stumbling block to some families trying to get some independence for their kids, and so they were just suggesting that we could be advocates for the state to try to make those more available.
Waiver redesign and waiver reset is something that got put on hold. I would venture to say that in 2027, you will begin to see that we don't just have those two waivers specifically as they are now. It's going to become something different. It doesn't mean, I'm not saying people are going to get left out or anything, but I think they're implementing some strategies that are going to better identify what people's actual needs are and try to use the money that we have available to better meet people's individual needs through some more data-driven and informed budget and resource planning.
Nice.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Really quickly too, wanted to share a little bit more about the public safety table. We had quite a few representatives from the deaf and hard of hearing community that said that there's still some challenges. You know, they would like to have the first responders be trained in some basic sign language, some training, some maybe connection with the deaf community and our first responders. The issue is that if they're hurt, they use their hands to communicate. So if they're hurt, if they're like in a gurney for like, you know, in an ambulance and they can't use their hands to communicate, you know, they talked about some kind of picture, signs or something, a card that could be presented to say, I'm deaf. Right now, the police cars have ground thumpers that vibrate at intersections that help to alert people who are driving that they're being, pulled over, or there's a police officer behind them. So there is definitely some challenges and, more understanding of what the concerns are, and training and mock sessions. So those are some of those things, and utilizing the translation services, how we can use technology to better help the community. Under recreation, we're doing the new Fishers Recreation Center, so more programming, like adaptive programming, like the Carmel Monon Center, working with nonprofits and businesses to leverage the relationships and, create opportunities for exercise, social events, health and wellness. So I know that the city's, Parks and Recreation Department is working on that.
They've also been talking to Outside the Box about what does that look like. So I know those conversations are happening. Because one of the questions I had was, do you want to have swimming classes for people with disabilities, or do you want to have swimming classes where we integrate people with disabilities with everyone else? And the answer was probably both, because people need to be able to choose. And so looking at also the potential of integrating some sort of rec therapy option on the waiver that can happen at the rec center that would supplement some of those options for folks individually.
Okay, wonderful.
I also asked the rec center if somebody needed an aide with them, do they have to belong to the rec center? Do they have to have a membership? If a special needs person goes into the rec center to swim or something else and they needed an aide, are they included? And I asked that at the Parks Department, and they said they didn't know, but that hadn't really been decided yet.
I think the answer is, if you're there, for example, with like your staff from Outside the Box, all Outside the Box staff will be part of like a corporate membership. That's an option. But I think what will happen is if the individual attending is a member, and they're a member, and they bring someone to help them, their companion should be able to come. But I'll put that on my list because I'm getting ready to meet with them.
Great.
Darcy, could you share a little bit more about your table, social opportunities, and networking?
Sure. One of the things we talked about, actually we talked about a lot, if you can see, we've got front and back pages. But opportunities for knowing what's out there for intellectual and developmental disabilities for all ages, because we have a lot of like high school and young adults, but we don't have things for parents of children that are brand new, the children have disabilities, they don't know where to go or what to do, or what resources are out there to help them with their newborn, or 1 and 2-year-old that has just been diagnosed with a certain disability. So I know that Wilbur and I took a part in that ASL at Hamilton Public Library, and the man next to me, his daughter's 4, and she's hard of hearing. And they only found out about the ASL class from the Fishers Public Library. They didn't know anything was out there for their child, or that they could help their child, and so they jumped on it right away. But I think that's important that A, it's a good thing that we are getting the word out, but B, parents of newborns or younger children need to have some sort of opportunity to learn about services than just the middle school or the teenage or the little bit older adult. So that was one of the things that was brought out. Also, some other things we talked about were sports opportunities or finding other inclusive teams or other inclusive extracurricular activities that involve people of all age, or teenagers or young adults that they could participate in. The example was, for example, 4-H, including kids with developmental disabilities involved, including in club organizations with 4-H, and there are such things in 4-H, at least when I was in 4-H, that you could do demonstrations, so you can talk about your disability and educate everybody else, all the other kids, about your disability. So just including students that have the developmental disability or intellectual disability in that organization, whether it be a sport or an extracurricular, we want to make sure that there's some opportunities.
Great. And we had 2 more table discussions. Tourism, I was on that discussion, and the takeaway there was that how can we better prepare the restaurants, and now that we have the event center and hotels, how can we better prepare them to be ready to see more patrons with disabilities at their establishments? And, are we ready? Are they accessible? The buttons at doors to restaurants, they may not be set up in the right way to be able to access an establishment, readily. And so how can we train and maybe work with Hamilton County Tourism? They're interested in, working with our committee to see, how can we help and make that better, so some training. And I know that Katie, now that she's a new member of our committee, she's been, has a lot of ideas of how we can help educate the community of, some barriers to their patrons, So that was good. And then the final one was transportation. And so they talked about that there were a lot of, I'm on a committee there to try to help make, and Kelly and I also are serving on that, to help make Hamilton County Express run a little bit better. So the good news is the Hamilton County has funded a new money for a new software system for Hamilton County Express, and so that's going to allow for them to serve everybody better. It'll be eventually on an app where you can in real time see where the shuttle or the bus is coming, alert you whether they're running late, and they redid their ridership guide, so they're trying to cut down on people not showing up for their ride or canceling at the last minute. So there's now stricter, whether really trying to have penalties for people that are repeat offenders that are not, following the guidelines. And then now they're housing a couple of the shuttles within the municipalities. So like, for instance, Fishers, right now, we've got 2 shuttles that are being housed in Holland Park. And so it helps the drivers start the route directly in Fishers and get people to their destination on time. So out of those discussions, those are some positive things. So there's more to come, but there's been a lot of funding for new technology, which it needed, because there was actual people doing all the routes, manually doing it on their own. And so with a computer, it kind of generates the runs and plugs people in. I saw that we have a report. I don't know, was this from you? Would you be able to just share a little bit of some of the data that you guys got from the city for Disability Awareness Month, Samantha?
Yeah, so we gave out 400 allies to the fifth throughout the month. It's actually 11 events, not 10. So sorry for that on there, that error. As far as the website views, that's just total views. Views are up this year on our website, so that people are using it, and we can make that a definite resource for people to go to. Let's see. For our Being an Ally, we had 118 views and 69 users. Meet Your Neighbor, or excuse me, the kickoff was actually the most popular of the blog posts that we did this year. We had a great open rate for the city news when it comes to March Disability Awareness. I will say that our normal open rate for those type of newsletters runs about 30%. So to see this at 60 is really good.
Oh, wow.
I'm interested in it. Although our click-through rate was down a little bit, I think that's because we didn't have as many links this time. It was go to our page, like we were pushing people to our webpage so that they know that that resource is there versus to direct sites. So that can change your click-through rate. We did not do targeted ads this year, so that's why our total posts from last year to this year impressions was down. But that's fine, because these are then like people genuinely going, not being targeted to come to it, because people going and looking for the information. So that number is still great. And, sorry. Okay. In all of our engagements, it seems like people engage most with this content on Facebook, which makes sense to the demographic. And we would encourage us to continue to use that as a platform. Throughout the year, we can post things that help drive people to those pages and those resources. It seems like that's our best engagement tool. The videos did really well on YouTube. It's not on here, but a lot of people went and watched the videos of the winners, and those are really well engaged. Are there anything in particular on here that you guys have questions about?
I have a question that's not on there. First of all, I love the fact that we actually get data about what you guys are putting out there. I think that's fantastic and appreciated. And you may not know the answer to this, and maybe Ross will know. But I often wonder, what is the city of Fishers, where's the limit for who gets Facebook pages and who's doesn't? You know what I mean? Like Fishers Parks has one. The police department has one. There are other Fishers-related initiatives that have their own Facebook page. And the reason I ask, not because I want to manage another Facebook page, because I really don't. However, this committee exists for awareness and resources, right? I wouldn't think if I moved to Fishers or if I were new to the school system and wanted to understand Best Buddies and that kind of stuff, I'm probably not going to go to the City of Fishers website, right? And because our impact now, Noblesville has an advisory committee, Carmel has one, Lawrence has one, Westfield has one, I would see that it becomes a bigger reach than just Fishers. So for example, when we're doing the resource fair, I could see people following a Facebook page to get that information much further than just our community. And so there is a culture amongst our community where people are constantly thirsty for connecting with other people and resources. I love the City of Fishers Facebook page, but I don't see that as being their job, right? I feel like it, I mean, you're right, you're exactly right when you said Facebook and this demographic is what works. And I don't know if there's like do you have to get a blessing from someone or, and it's not a question you have to answer tonight. If there's context, that'd be great. I just wonder about if that would be something that we could consider.
I will let Samantha chime in because she is part of the public relations department. I do know there is a conscious effort when it comes to, we've had lots of websites and lots of social medias, and we have tried to consolidate that into a more clear message. I think there is some value in a regional talking point, whether it's under the tourism umbrella, or I think this year with our closed captioning initiative led by Hamilton County Tourism, that showed the value was bigger than just us, even though we were one of the main drivers. So I'd be interested in that. There's a lot of blessings and decisions being made specifically for, long-term value in starting a social media channel. But I don't know if you want to add anything specifically.
I will say you're correct in trying to convince and make smart decisions on where information is housed, so people that don't have to look in 40 different places to find the same information. I will say part of the problem with multiple channels when it comes to our socials is, number one, spreading the information too thin, so people don't know really where to look, but also, is it engaging regularly? So instead of, we just post on that page, a couple times a year, like how can we keep it, if we have it, we want to keep it very engaging all the time, so people always know they can go there as a resource versus random posts. So I think that is part of the tug and pull on, do we have a page for everything? Do we put it on one place and then encourage them to branch out to the website? Like, what is it? So it's definitely a conversation if that's a direction you guys want to consider. And I think the encouragement will be like, okay, then how do we keep it engaging year round? How do we make it?
So for example, and this is just me being nosy, Fishers Parks page, does that get managed by Parks or does that get managed by PR?
Parks.
Okay,
PR only does the general.
the Fishers, City of Fishers.
Anything specific, police does their own,
Okay.
Parks does their own. PR is just overarching.
And I think people that can find our resource page are really appreciative of it being there. It is not easy to find.
Yeah.
It is buried in layers. I mean, I feel like I know what I'm looking for since I'm on this committee. And I have to constantly, I might as well just write down how I get there because it is not easy to find.
What if, and it would not be me, if we could have someone that would take kind of ownership and do the heavy lifting, if you will, someone that we can trust, that understands, social media, that we can work with the PR department and the city, because one of the things I think we want to do as a committee is not just engage people in March, but bring awareness to, there's a deaf and hard of hearing month, I believe it's September, Jason told me. So, where we could post information, statistics, information, classes or whatever, but maybe we can identify, I know there's more people that want to kind of help us out and be a part of what we're trying to do what do you think? And maybe it's someone from here, I don't know.
I just wanted
I'm
to
not
make sure it
very-
wasn't a hard no. We'll talk about
But
this
we can
further.
talk more.
I will say that, sorry. It's a little easier to move those things forward when you have that commitment that, hey, we'll provide you the content, we just need you to share it and push it, and things like that. When we do that, we get, because we're such a small team, doing most of all of the PR stuff other than like individual, but we're still pushing their information as too, so it's not like they're controlling that, they're sending us the graphics and things, but we're still pushing their information as well. So when we have that support, like, hey, we wanna make this page ours, we'll provide you the content, we need it on there, or we need you to push it.
Okay,
I think we just need to put a little thought behind a work plan.
yeah. We'll come up with a plan, and that's something we wanted to talk about.
But we know and agree that disability is not just something that we need to focus on in March. It is a
Oh,
year-long
1000%.
discussion point.
And
There's a lot of value.
there's a lot of cool things happening in our community that we don't necessarily put out because we don't have a way to do that. I mean, there's a parents group meeting now for people with disabilities. A lot of things for Thrive. There's a lot of things that come out of this that we would absolutely be able to share. And I just happen to think about this because I have a 20-year-old PR and marketing student looking for internships. I mean, there's ways to have a win-win, but we just need to,
Yeah.
we just need to know that we can have a discussion. I want to make sure it was like a, no, that would violate our policy.
We're definitely open to that.
Okay,
I
great.
also think with your guys' pages, we need to do some condensing, because there are multiple branches to get information, and it would be helpful if it's one page, one URL, and then you branch off from there, but everyone is directed to that main page.
Yep.
Then the branches exist if they're needed.
Gotcha.
So we'll look at that as well in our
Thank you.
PR and
Thank
marketing.
Do you think there would ever be a possibility that when we go to the Fishers website, that one of the bullet points, like health and public safety and everything else, one of the bullet points might be disability?
That I can't speak to, I don't know, I know when we did the website redo, they changed a lot of that and what their parameters and what was important to have on that main page, that I don't know, I mean, that question can always be asked, I just can't answer that because I wasn't a part of that process. But, you know how like when you hover over whatever at the top, I'm sure in those lists it could be somewhere, more prominent, but I don't know the answer to that.
Because I don't think it's on the list. When I go looking, I could type the word disability in the Fisher search engine and it'll get me there.
It'll
But
get
I know to
kind of
type,
there.
I know to type the word disability. But most people, if they were hunting, they wouldn't know.
Yeah,
start.
I think you're 3 clicks in, you go into city services, resident resources, and there's accessibility accommodations. But to your point, Kelly, how do I know that, right? So I think it's fair.
Well, and if I'm deaf and hard of hearing, or if I have an individual in my family with cerebral palsy or something like that, I may not think immediately that that's where I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
What were you saying, Mom?
Well, I would agree on how many clicks it takes to get to and the visibility of that.
Because right now, if you go to the main page and you hover over services and resources, what it's under is accessibility and accommodations.
And Kelly was just saying that.
And that sounds to me like grab bars and ramps.
Sure.
Well, we'll talk about it more here later in this meeting here about what we can do about that. Wanted to see any committee updates. Wilbur, any update on housing?
Can I say one more thing about Fishers? We didn't really mention the arts event, and Ross, I would love for you to talk about that, because I heard it was wildly successful this year. Cecilia and I, neither one got to be there.
Yeah, several of you were there. I appreciate that. So we had 312 people on our clicker, which historically is under what the actual number is. That is the most we've had an art reception in the history of us
It was so
tracking that
great. I heard it was an
information.
amazing night.
The performances by the dance troupe was amazing, as well as the short film that we had. So it was really impactful, and like I said, it was the most we had attended. Ate us out of house and home, and we had no drinks or food left over, which was amazing. But it was nice, and it was from 6 to 9, and we went up until the last minute, so
Very good.
appreciate it.
It was amazing, and I just, I want to thank the Fishers Arts Council and Ross and Samantha and the PR department, everyone from the city was amazing in terms of, your support and time to put together an amazing, march, and I just want to thank you, and I want to thank the committee members that helped to plan for March as well, and so,
But it was great to see this theater used, and with the intent, with the performances, so it was a good time, and we'll do it again.
that's
The
awesome.
deaf performer with his high-tech art show was pretty
Sebastian, yeah,
spectacular.
he was great.
It was
Yeah.
really, really cool. Awesome. Okay, any other questions on March or anything? Yeah, thank you for the update, Samantha, with that. Any updates for Housing Committee, Wilbur, anything?
No, I think most of what we got from our table
Okay,
talks. so
perfect.
Point of view.
Wonderful. How about employment? Any updates with employment?
No new updates other than what we talked about at our table, so.
Okay. Community support, any updates there?
I would just say, and this is kind of why I'm over here perseverating about Facebook and ways to reach people. We have to find more ways for families to be in touch with each other. Thrive is great, but it's not the only families that need information. And I'm just telling you, when you have the combination of confusion, chaos, and wonderfulness, I mean, that's all I can say, of the combination of changes at the federal level and the state level, and what we have planned from the state perspective and waiver redesign for services over the next 2 years, we need to be able to get people information. It's going to be a lot of things. And that's all in service delivery. And I wrote down a note to myself, do we have anything on our resource page that says, if your child needs services, this is what you have to do?
No,
I don't know if we do.
we don't have anything.
So there's some things that we could do, I think, to make some information a little bit more accessible. It's going to be a wild ride for the next 2 years, if not 4.
Wow, okay. Good to know, good information. Networking, social accessibility, any kind of, Darcy, any kind of,
I have, yeah, sure. We talked about this at our table, but I wanted to share the MUHSEN, M-U-H-S-E-N. It's a nonprofit organization. They have monthly coffees, and they just started in April, where the kids, teenagers, adults with disabilities are serving coffee, like from a certain time period. So I went to the one, Naya Coffee in the Hub and Spoke building, they hosted the coffee there at that date. And I went, and Dahlia, who coordinates it, she was very excited that we were there representing and supporting them. And so she sent me the flyer, and I submitted that, and Ross was great in passing it on, and I think you and I had talked about, and I sent that to Ashley. But they were so appreciative of just us getting the word out about this opportunity for people with disabilities serving coffee to the community.
awesome.
So they're going to do that on a monthly basis, but they're going to rotate coffee shops.
Okay.
So she's going to send me the flyers. Every time I get a flyer, I'll send that out.
And that would be great to add, to the website. Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
could you spell that again? one more
Sure,
time?
it's MUHSEN.
Okay, thank you.
New business, Farmers Market Inclusion Day. Do we have any updates on that right now, Darcy?
Well, yes and no. It's still going to be July the 13th. I was told that the Fishers Farmers Market coordinator was hired and started yesterday.
Okay.
And I was told that as soon as that person's up to speed, they're going to contact me and get things ironed out for the day. I do know we'll need help with the day like we
Okay.
did last year. And that could be setting up, that could be manning our table, that could be directing people, or just interacting with community. But that is something that I'm going to need help with when it comes time.
Do we have a table drape yet?
We don't, I'm going to meet with Cecilia about getting one of those, the table.
So, Ross, we were wanting to see if, we could get tablecloth that says, you know, Fishers Advisory Committee on Disability, and also maybe a banner or something, is it would be nice to have a table there, we could have representatives there at, the Inclusion Day and walking around with, you know, our badges and, sharing, you know, sharing the initiative, sharing things.
Yeah, we can get a tablecloth ordered, a banner, and then the A-frame ordered as good as well.
Can we have one, I know we had the A-frame last year, and that was great. Can we have another one to, do we have, okay, because the one, I think some of the vendors there said having one here at this end and one at another end, because people were not sure where to go.
Sure, we can
So
And-
that-
order more.
The other thing that's come up recently related to this is, you know, signage of designation of culture city and the, sensory kits, like more signage, like at our upcoming concerts, to have more visibility of this is available, like maybe at Inclusion Day, we could have a kit there and
We had
know,
them at our table last year.
talk, okay.
And so when we engaged with the public, we mentioned, hey, we've got these sensory kits, but they didn't know anything about that. So that would be great if we had some additional signage as to what they are, or at least, you know, having those at our table.
I can chat with the new manager and the parks director
Oh,
for
sorry.
feather flags and,
Oh, July
yard
12th.
signs.
Sorry,
So
Mike.
we had previously started on this, and I drew up a little potential thing for us to think about as far as a sign, like an expandable sign, 6-foot tall sign, and a couple of, tablecloths. Can I just take responsibility for that? I'll make sure you guys all like it, and if you say you like it, then I'll just order it, and I'll expense the city. Can we do that?
Well, I think we have to do it
If you
through
can
PR
Can you
officially, I
source it
think.
and share it with me?
Yeah, so we already went through this, so that's what we need to do, is send you guys what we want?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you using your government logo?
Yes. Are we allowed to?
Yeah.
I'll
we-
show you what we came, because we had this conversation last year, after, and so we need to get on that before this year's event at the farmer's market. So I'll show you what we talked about, and I'll double check and make sure all of these people like it, and when they say yes, then I'll send everything to you.
Just send me the invoice.
Ross, I will send it
Yep.
to Ross.
And I apologize, July 15th was last year. This year it's July 12th.
July
Sorry, that's,
12th,
yeah,
okay.
Saturday, July 12th.
So if everyone can mark it on their calendars to try to be there, what are the times? What's the time?
Last year it was from 8 to 12, I
8 to
believe.
12. Okay.
Yes, it's the same time as everybody else. Now, we'll have one more meeting in June. I'll hopefully be able to provide additional details, if not all. So I can also send out an email, just kind of getting everybody up to speed once I meet with the Fishers Parks to person that reaches out, and we can talk about it. Is that good? Okay. Sorry, I don't have any more information. That's just the best I got.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you, Darcy. So one of the things I kind of wanted to, that's on the agenda to talk about, and I think it's something that now we really need to focus on. We've identified that there's some challenges. It just came to our attention yesterday, and I forward this information on to our PR department and Ross and Kelly. There's been a new federal regulation, a new subpart H related to web and mobility accessibility that was enacted April 24th, 2024, where public entities of a population of 50,000 or more need to comply with certain things to make sure that it's accessible, I guess, in terms of web content and mobile apps and things like that. And we have until April 26th of 2027, I guess, to comply. So I sent the ordinance or the regulation, and so kind of from that, I wanted to kind of see about updating, you know, working together, and maybe we need to do a work session, like devote a set of time where we could all sit down together with PR. I don't know if that would be the best way, because we talked about it at the last meeting, but just kind of working together to try to make the website, you know, better. What are your thoughts?
Kara is the accessibility expert when it comes to our website. She actually went to a conference last year and did a whole presentation on website accessibility and all of that. So honestly, she's probably aware of that. I can't say whether she is or not. She's on maternity leave right now. She'll be back in June, I believe. But she's actually suggested that she should be the one attending these meetings with you guys, because that is her forte. And she's actually super passionate about it, and apparently her presentation was so good that multiple cities around the country have asked to pay for her to come out to do speaking on it,
That's awesome.
on her presentation. She actually should probably share that with you guys.
So that you know what she's doing, what she's working on, and all of that. I think she's the perfect person to get with if you've noticed things on there that are not compliant yet or that you have questions on. But I would probably say she's probably very aware.
Good to know. I'm wondering, maybe at our next quarterly meeting, maybe she could share part of her presentation, and then, when does she get back from maternity leave?
I want to say in June. She went in
Okay.
March, May, maybe July.
Okay. So if there's any content, I think right now too, in the meantime, I think we really need, one of the things that our mission statement, we need to make some changes there. It's very intellectual disability oriented, and we need to include physical disabilities and deaf and hard of hearing, and kind of, I would like for the committee to kind of take a look at the website and make suggestions on content changes or additions. I did find out, and I sent it to the city representatives today, PR. I found out of a new, it's not new, but I don't know if anyone's heard of Indiana Disability Resource Finder. And that's an all-encompassing website. I had no idea. So I'd like to include that right now on our website, because basically you type in the disability, the criteria, the age, where you live, zip code, and it pops up. You tell them what topic it might be, if you're in need of a specific resource or whatever, and it pops up all the resources that are available in the area. And I didn't know about it, but it's pretty cool once you take a look. So I think we were going to try to add that to the website, but I do want to make that a priority as something that we look at and work collaboratively with the city to improve, you know, the use and make it better for to navigate that and for people to know what's going on with as it relates to disability. So are there any questions or comments related to that at all?
Ally can add that now to the page before Kara gets back. Kara gets back on June 11th.
Okay.
So I would definitely encourage that we have some sort of meeting with her. Like I said, she calls everyone out. If it's not accessible, she'll be like, nope, you can't put that out, it's not accessible. So she's big on that. So I think you guys definitely should have a conversation with her and invite her to come.
Do you suggest that we make our next meeting kind of a work session to work on this with her, or should we set a separate work session to kind of go over this? What do you think? I mean, and we're all prepared?
I think one of the things that I suggested to Cecilia, and it's open to all, we have to figure out the nightmare of scheduling it, but I think our group needs to get together outside of a public meeting and look at everything from my point of view day and all these things we're talking about and say, what are we going to tackle this year? Almost like our strategy for this year. Because we have a lot of things, and if we don't establish what we're really going to try and accomplish, then things get lost. And I think there's a lot of great ideas And, we're at a really cool place in our evolution of who we are and what impact we're making. So I think this group needs to meet about the big picture, and we need to have a separate meeting with Kara.
Yeah, because your guys' next meeting's right the day before she gets back. Okay.
And so for my understanding of website accessibility is it's such a technical area that I'm sure she knows way more. I'm disabled and an attorney, and I couldn't tell you anything about website accessibility because it's such a technical area. Like there are attorneys that specialize in that because it is a very litigious area right now. So unless any of you have specific knowledge, I doubt we'll be able to give her any information, but I mean, I love the idea of her presenting to us. I mean, just to give us bullet points of, what she looks for to make sure a website is accessible. I mean, I would value that information, and I think we could all just take it back to our everyday lives. And then for like the website, I think it would be great to have a working meeting. Right before this meeting, Cecilia, I sent you guys some updated language that I suggested. But I agree, I think we should probably either set aside some time, or unless everyone wants to send individual red lines. And
It's just so hard to get, to sit, we need a committed time where we're in the same room with whiteboards. And we can have lunch, and we can visualize the areas that we are interested in making an impact. And we have some kind of overriding themes we need to deal with, like how do we get people access to the information? How do we make sure that we're being inclusive of all people? The word disability is a turnoff for a lot of people, right? Disability means a lot of things, but if you look at the meaning of it, it is somebody who is not able. And that is not the way that I want anyone to feel, that we are promoting that, right? So how can we be more inclusive of the deaf and hard of hearing community? How can we make sure that our group is doing more stuff with the 55 and older, the folks who are falling, the things that were our big needs for our community, but things that we could shed light on. So I think that's a conversation we need to have in sort of a work session.
Yeah, so I can have Kelly send out dates for everyone that works, and we're happy to host you here for lunch. When we gather more
We got whiteboards.
I'm sorry, what?
Do we have a room with whiteboards?
Oh, we do have rooms with whiteboards.
I need a whiteboard.
So, awesome. Well, let's definitely do that. I'm gonna jump over the top three, since we're kind of in the work session conversation. We wanted to kind of share, okay, based on, the takeaways from My Point of View Day and what you're hearing the community, what are the top, what do you think? I think we need to basically take the three, decide on our, what are the three priorities we're gonna take on this year, and, assign tasks for each committee member, and, work collaboratively. But we wanted to hear kind of from all of you of what would be, I would say, the website, obviously, because we have compliance that needs to be done, but what would be some other suggested priorities from this group that we could plan for our work session to kind of start talking about?
I think our assignment needs to be to think about that and determine that at the work session.
Okay.
I have Post-it notes everywhere that I work about things for this committee to think about. And I think we probably all have thoughts, like when we go through this. Now that I know that all those notes are attached to the agenda, because I haven't even seen all of those notes that he has, I think we should all go away from here and say, we make a commitment to read through those. What do we think the priorities are? What will have the biggest impact? What ones have ripple effects? And that's what we use as the format to move And I facilitate stuff like that all the time, so I'm happy to facilitate that work session.
Hey Ross, maybe Kelly can put that on the invite, as like, bring your 3 top or whatever, and maybe some points to share with it, just so it's a reminder to everybody. I mean, I do think everybody's probably gonna come with their own, but just so everybody's prepared to help move it.
And we'll get out the notes from My Point of View Day to everybody, if not everybody got it,
Is
but
it
that's a-
attached to the agenda? So if you went and printed out the whole agenda and didn't, like me, just say, oh yeah, that's first page, click, I'm done. I didn't realize it was all in the
Okay.
agenda that went out, so.
No problem. All right, well, that sounds like a good plan. Before we finish the meeting, I want to talk about, just to let everybody know about the closed captioning initiative. This was something that was rolled out in March in collaboration with Hamilton County Tourism, with the Indiana Restaurant and Lodging Association, all the Hamilton County Chamber of Commerce groups, and the advisory committees from Noblesville, Westfield, Carmel, and Fishers. And it was amazing just to have this collaboration, but basically we worked with the deaf and hard of hearing community to roll out an initiative that will help to promote and encourage businesses to provide closed captioning on their television, as at least one television. Statistically, based according to the National Deaf Center, 3.6% of the U.S. population considers themselves deaf and hard of hearing. And this initiative helps to provide real-time captions on public TV screens and allows equal access to important information like entertainment and services. So what this initiative does is help businesses understand, how do I turn the streaming on? How do I work the television itself to get the closed captioning on? And they've engaged many restaurants and establishments already, and they've provided a decal that businesses and restaurants can display, to show that they're making a commitment to do that. And so this is going to be an ongoing initiative. And so to learn more, please visit the Hamilton County website, closed captioning there to learn more. And we just encourage the businesses here locally to learn more about that. So that's awesome. I don't know if there's any questions about the closed captioning initiative, but that's exciting. We're going to move on to staff communication. Is there any staff communication, Ross, from anybody that?
Other than the mayor has appointed a new member to the advisory committee on disability, Jason Wagner, who we all have met over the past couple years, who spoke at My Point of View Day, will be joining this committee. He was unavailable tonight, otherwise he would have been here. We appreciate all his work he's done so far, really shedding a light on the deaf and hard of hearing community. And it was really a build it and they will come moment when we saw, 10 plus residents in our community come to My Point of View Day. If you make it accessible, people will come. So it was again, highlighting his work already. So
That's
we look
awesome.
forward to having him.
Right, he's on a work trip, but he did want me to just read a statement. He's very excited, and he just says, thank you for appointing me to serve on this committee. I'm truly honored to be part of this important work, and I look forward to contributing toward positive change and improving accessibility for the deaf and hard of hearing community in Fishers. So he's excited to work with us, so we're really excited about that. Under announcements, the announcement that I have is Wilbur and I had the privilege to meet with Tom Easterday, who is leading the Zionsville Advisory Committee on Disability. It got codified in their city, and they wanted to kind of learn more of like what we've been doing and what are some of the first steps and things that they could at least begin doing. So we gave them a list of ideas, and he's excited because he feels like, at some point, not only could we work countywide, but we could work regionally on some initiatives. And so, you know, we really, if you think about it, you know, Fishers and what we've started here has really made an impact, and it's getting noticed, and we're making a difference. So I really appreciate everybody's help and contribution and time, you know, for this. And we're always interested in hearing from the community. You know, please email us with any thoughts, any ideas, you know, that this committee can work on. Does anyone else have any other announcements? Kelly?
I do. This is just information to share. There's 2 great opportunities for learning coming up. September 25th, the Family to Family Heart to Heart Conference. It's a virtual conference. Really, really great information for families. And they are beginning to plan for that now. So if you're interested in that, go to the Family to Family website. And May 2nd to May 4th, the International Myotonic Dystrophy Foundation Conference is in Indianapolis at the Westin. And so that's a pretty rare form of a muscular dystrophy, but it does impact families. And I'm sure we have some folks that would like to know more about that. So again, that's MDS, Myotonic Dystrophy Foundation. Their international conference is going to be May 2nd through 4th. So if you're interested in that, it's going to be at the Westin.
Awesome. Is there a way that you could provide the links to PR, and maybe they could add it to our website under the resources or something?
I can give it to them to put in the minutes and share with the group, yeah.
Okay, that'll be great. Anybody else? Any other announcements or anything? Okay. I wanted to just thank everybody again for their time. Our next Advisory Committee on Disability meeting will be June 10th, 5:30 to 7, here in this room. And if I think we're ready to adjourn. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Motion by Kelly and second by Michelle Stelz. Okay, all in favor say aye. We're adjourned.